Welcome to Keto Life Support, where we make your keto life sustainable, fun, and low stress. I'm Kim Howerton, and I'll be coming to you weekly with some of my keto besties to bring you the practical, real-world keto advice that you need. Quick disclaimer, I am not a doctor, and even if we do have a doctor in the house from time to time, he or she is not your doctor, and nothing we say on this show should be taken as medical advice. Always check in with a trusted medical professional about your own personal medical concerns. Hello, welcome. This is Kim Howerton. We're coming to you with show episode number 54. And in show 54, I'm going to talk about some things I've realized recently when I've been trying products. But first, I'm just going to say I don't know how long this episode is going to last. Because I decided to take on a project this week. If you don't know by now, you know that I love experiments. And I also don't know why I'm talking like a Valley girl right now. I don't know. I don't know these things. Anyway, I like experiments. And so I am trying one this week because you know that advice that we get a lot, which is drink half your body weight in ounces of water, which I've always said was nonsense. Yeah. I was like, well, let's see what happens if I do it. But, here's the reality. I will go far with an experiment, but I will only go so far. I try to draw the line at will this harm me? And so what I've done is made sure that my electrolytes are really on point. Because if you're not on point with your electrolytes, and if you're not actually adding additional electrolytes to compensate for the massive quantity of water that I am currently drinking, not currently, not right this second, but today, in general, then you're going to be in worse shape. So what I've done is I've mixed up a lovely pitcher of water, a ginormous pitcher of water. It's in my fridge and it's almost empty, people. And it's only 4:00 right now when I'm recording this. So hey, yay me. But I put in there LMNT. If you guys aren't familiar with LMNT, it is an electrolyte drink mix. I don't recommend very many electrolyte drink mixes. If you've gotten my little handout on electrolytes, which you can get, by the way, at electrolytes.kimhowerton.com. I'll put the link in the show notes. I tell you this there, and I'll spoil it's only a small point of the document. There are very few brands that I recommend because so many brands are just flavoring for your water and there's no sodium. I mean, when I say no, I mean not much, really not much at all. Some of them have 1% of your daily sodium needs. What's the point of that? Anyway, but LMNT is one of the only three electrolyte supplements at this time that I really recommend. And so I'm a fan and I think they taste delicious. So I have those in my pitcher of water today. I have because it was a lot of water. I put 2 oranges and 1 citrus salt. I made a little mix them. Oh, and I a half a lemon I chopped up in there. So that was my little beverage of the day. And so it's really important that if you're going to do ridiculous water things that you make sure that you don't kill yourself. So that's my bottom line. Anywho, the reason I said I don't know how long this episode was, if anybody didn't pick up on it, is I may have to pee at some point. So if I do, we'll just draw this thing to a close early, but we'll try. We'll see how it goes. All right. So, what did I want to talk about today? Well, something that has been coming up for me is, you guys probably know from previous episode that I've been doing a lot of blood sugar testing. And because of that, in conjunction with that, I've been testing a lot of various keto products, many of which I would probably not have purchased or said yes to trying, with the exception of the fact that I'm testing my blood sugar with these products. These are dangerous things, people, right? I'm wearing the CGM and, normally I'd walk past a product in the store that was keto and I just sort of purse my lips and squint my eyes and be like, no, nuh-uh. But now I'm ooh, experiment. So danger. I am the child who touches the stove to see if it's hot. So, I've tried some things that, I wouldn't, like I said, would normally not eat. And some of them, surprisingly, my blood sugar has been fine. And others of them, woo, Nelly, that's been bad. And so it's like a little truth detector. Now, I got super interested in this because I'm wait, this one product versus this other product, when I read the ingredient list, they're very similar. So why did product A spike me to 140 milligrams per deciliter and item B left me at 85? Like, what's going on? And so I have an upcoming episode. I've got somebody who makes keto products that's going to talk to me about why he suspects I saw a difference. So be tuned in for that. It's not this episode. Coming up. I have to schedule and record these things, people. But what I wanted to talk about was dirty keto, right? It kind of just led me into this thought that, gosh, I've been eating all these things that I don't normally eat. And I definitely think one could, should one be inclined to use said term, call them dirty keto. And I thought, well, let's actually talk about this, because I am on social media and I will see other keto people on social media talking about various brands that they recommend, right? I did it on this show, right? I talked about LMNT, which is a company that I totally recommend, and the product. But how do I want to say this? I research the products that I recommend and I make sure that I can recommend them. And honestly, if I recommend something and I change my mind about it, I try to tell people. In fact, I have a bit of a reputation here in that there's a company out there that I don't remember which one it was anymore, but you know, those companies that you like sign up for and they mail you a box full of keto products. And then, you know, you can try this like 10, 12, 15, I don't remember, but it was like a number of keto products that would come on a monthly basis. And I thought, well, what a fabulous idea. I will try these. I will do reviews on these. And then, you know, if you're a person with a big enough social following, some of these companies will just send you a free box. They don't send you any money. Well, at least not at my level of social following, but they send you a free box and they're like, try it out, tell people about it, advertise it. So I did a number of reviews after getting these boxes. And then one day I noticed I didn't get a box and like reached out to the company. And it turns out that I just was so terrible at quote unquote selling people on these boxes. Cause I'd be like, yeah, don't eat that. No, this is not good. No, oh yeah, these ingredients. I don't know. Do you have like a kid that's not keto? You could feed it to them. Right. Like all of my some products, I was like, wow, this is great. I love it. But like 90% of it was pretty negative. And so they didn't want to send me any more boxes. Apparently I was not good for sales. So trying all these keto products, you know, as you know, if you've been to the grocery store recently, you wander through the aisles and you start to see like keto is written on all sorts of things. And so, I tried a lot of them and it felt kind of like I had permission because of the CGM. And then after a few weeks, I gotta say some of it was really fun. I like this stuff. I mean, who doesn't like junk food? I mean, very few people. I mean, you might not like the idea of junk food, but junk food only sells because it tastes good, because there's no other reason to eat it, right? So I was having a little fun with it. It was fine. I felt fairly in control. I wasn't like binging. But one day I sort of stopped and thought about it because I enter my macros into Chronometer, which is a tracking program. And I was like, I have to make choices here. Like I have to make choices about macros. If I'm including this stuff, I have to make choices about macros that actually probably leave me short on nutrients. So I'm going to try and explain that, if that makes sense. Like, this is not a moral issue for me. I think if you can be a healthy person with stable blood sugars, a good gut, like you don't feel sick, your energy is good, your insulin levels are good, like your health is good, and you like eating tasty things, that just seems normal to me. Like I have no issue with the tasty things. I am a foodie. I love good tasting food. I get it. No issue at all. But the reality is we don't eat just for pleasure. Shocking, right? This would shock the hell out of me back before I started keto. But one thing that we've learned, if you're like me on this keto journey, is food is actually a nutrient delivery device, right? It's how, just like a plant needs sun, we need nutrients. And good nutrition is kind of a bit of a game of Tetris, if you will, right? Like when you're packing to move, you're like, I have a moving van that is this big and I've got to get all the stuff I need into that van. Or like, I'm going on vacation and I have a suitcase. And what am I going to need while I'm on vacation, right? Like, pick your analogy. But you have a container, and that container is all the food that you're going to be able to eat in that day without overeating, right? So you have sort of a set container. You have a bit of a food budget. And then you have things that you need. You have nutrients. You need these nutrients. Now, any given day, our body, if we're relatively healthy, our bodies are flexible enough to like, we're a little short on that, a little long on that. It's totally fine. You can average it out over a couple of days, not a problem. But when you eat in a certain way on an ongoing basis, it's like, oh, I'm in Tahiti, but I only brought a parka. That's not going to work, right? Like, you have to have the appropriate room in your suitcase for all of the specific things you're going to need. And so one of the things that I really have been focused on thinking about the past few days is when I include a lot of keto products, I basically push room away for real nutrient-dense foods like steak, like ground beef, like, any kind of meat, like eggs, even vegetables, right? Like, if you think about it on keto, we kind of have a carb budget. Now, my budget may be bigger than your budget, and your budget may be bigger than that other person's budget, and that person over there may be bigger than all of our budgets, right? Like, we all have some unique tolerance in terms of our level of activity, level of muscle mass, age, gender, that all plays in. So we have a bit of a carb budget, and I think when we're working with that budget, we need to say like, okay, what's the most bang for the buck I can get? And flavor, taste, it factors in, but it's not the only concern. Now, I have a rule, people. I have a rule. I don't eat anything I don't like. I do not do it. Life is too short and I am too old. Like, I do not eat things that do not taste good to me. I am a princess. I call it like I see it, right? Like, I get that some of you are better at being like, I don't really like it, but it's good for me, so I'll eat it. I'm like, I don't like it, I don't want to eat it. But that actually means because there are things that I don't like and I don't eat, like, liver and really fish. I don't like either of those things very much. I will eat a little like liver pate or liver terrine or something like that. And there are certain types of fish that I will eat occasionally, but I'm not eating these on a regular enough basis to even pretend I'm getting any true nutrition from them. And so, there are other people who are like, oh, I don't like fish, but I eat it because I need the omega-3s. Well, they are better than I am. I'm just going to go with that. But what I do know is because I limit some of the nutrient-dense things I eat, and in these specific foods, there are nutrients that are hard to get from other places, I have to actually be more careful in how I eat because I need to make sure that I'm eating the right things to be a healthy individual. And these keto treats and snacks and products, they crowd out the nutrients. And so I'm not against keto products as a moral issue, but I do want any of you out there in the world who are including some of these things in your diet to be aware. Are they an enhancement or are they a detraction, right? Are they detracting from your total nutrient dosity, as you will? And how are you using them, right? So let me think about a day of eating, right? I got a product that I like called Egg Life Wraps. They're basically egg whites. It's like an egg white tortilla. And somehow they've done this so that it's not exactly, but it kind of resembles and kind of tastes like a flour tortilla a little bit. If you squint your taste buds, as you will. And, the only thing that's in there that some people might have an issue with, as far as I can remember, is there's some xanthan gum, like to adjust the texture. And some people have gut issues from xanthan gum. So if you do, don't eat them. But it's just a wrap and it's like 25 calories. It's like 5 grams of protein. So it's almost all protein. I think it's got like a half a gram of fat and like a quarter gram of carbs. It's like very low. And so I've been making all sorts of wraps with these. And mostly I've been throwing some chicken in there and maybe a little barbecue sauce and keto barbecue sauce and maybe some lettuce and making a little wrap. And I love it. And that is, in my opinion, kind of a nutrient win, right? They in and of themselves are not delivering, mega nutrients, but they aren't really a detractor, right? They're not taking away, and they allow me a vehicle to get more nutrients in. Like I could just eat the chicken or the steak or the whatever, but they're at least a net neutral, if not a net positive, right? You've got like negative, neutral, positive. That's how I tend to look at these things. And they're like a neutral to a positive because I eat them in conjunction with foods that are good for me and help me be a healthier person. And I feel good after I eat them. They're not like super high, like caloric density. So they work within my day and they give me a little bonus protein. So like win in my book. Then the other day I got some keto cookies as an example from a company I will not name. But I got these cookies and I tried them and it was, okay, here's my beef, people. I have many beefs, but here's one of mine. If your product is not in a resealable bag, it is 1 serving. So apparently this was supposed to be 2 servings of cookies in this little bag. Like it was one of those small bags, but it was said it was 2 servings. I hate that. If your bag is not resealable, it's 1 serving. So I had both servings of the cookies and then I felt really cruddy and then I didn't want to eat anything good for me. I didn't want to eat anything else. I was like, I don't feel great, but I was sort of like vaguely hungry still because it wasn't really. Do you remember this feeling from when you ate junk food? You're like, I am both full and hungry at the same time and I don't feel well. And, you know, when I thought about that as a quote unquote meal, it's like I didn't get hardly any protein. I got a ton of carbs. I mean, not relatively keto carbs, you know, I got some carbs. I got a ton of fat and I got, you know, what I would say is probably very low nutrients on the grand scheme of things. So that was not a win. That was like a net negative. Now I could potentially see a place where keto cookies could be a positive or at least a neutral. Right? Say I had I think it's probably stretching to call it a positive, but, you know, let's go with this. I could see that, you know, I had a good meal, a steak and maybe some veggies and a salad and, you know, I felt really good and it was great. And I just felt like, you know, what would be really nice. So it's really an emotional thing. It's not a nutrient thing. I was like, if I would really like a cookie, but, you know, I got high key snacks. I'm looking at them on my counter right now. I was cleaning out the cabinet and they're on my counter right now so I can look over and see them. And they come in very small. By the way, the cookies I was describing before, not high key. They're very small. They're like do you remember Famous Amos, those cookies? Anyway, they're kind of like those. You know, I could have 2 of those and they have very little impact because they're tiny. And yet I'd be like, oh, I had a nice little crunchy cookie and it was very tasty. And I had my little tasty thing. And I feel emotion. There's an emotional connection to cookies. Again, cookies are always emotional. Just like, you know, Robert Sywis says, like, snacks are always emotional. Cookies are always emotional. But like, you don't have to be a drama queen about that. Sometimes the emotion is just like, oh, that would be nice. And so, you know, but I would then have to know, will I stop at 2 little teeny mini cookies or will I eat the whole bag? And if my answer is not 100%, I am sure I can stop. Now you have to put the bag away. Like if the bag is sitting next to me on the sofa, I'm going to want to reach into it again. But if I put the bag away back in the cabinet, I would not be inclined to get back up and get another one. That is a sign to me that this could be included healthily as at least a neutral item that was like, I got pleasure from it, but I was able to control how I ate it so that it was not detracting from my overall nutrient dense picture. And that's really what this is you're learning about how to eat. Because honestly, did any of us actually learn how to eat before keto? Or maybe before you went paleo? Like at some point as an adult, probably. Because what I learned as a kid about food, it like touched on some things, but there was no like theory. There's no discussion about nutrients for the most part, except for like thinking, you know, how do I avoid not, you know, scurvy, you know, things like that. But scurvy's been less of a problem in society than we were led to believe in elementary school. And also cannibalism. If you're from California and you had to read the Donner Party, also less of an issue these days. Anyway, but I digress. So I guess I wanted to put it out there that it is very easy to let yourself get sucked down the path of seeking out products, novel tastes, and to lose sight of the fact that food is a nutrient delivery device, and we all have a limited budget. Some of us have a big house, some of us have a little house. You know, there's only so much we can fit in there. And so we have to focus on nutrient-dense foods. And then we might have a little bit of flexibility, a little bit of room. And so in those choices, when we're making the additional little here and there choices, we have to consider a few things. We have to consider, one, am I going to binge on this food? Is this what some would call trigger food for me? The way I would define that is sort of what I described with the cookies. Can I open the bag, take 2 out, there's still like 20 in there, close the bag up, put it in the cabinet, and not take any more today? If you can't answer, yes, I can do that, that is potentially a trigger food for you and not something you can include or keep in your house. So the first thing you have to look at is psychological. Can I avoid binging on this type of food or this product? Okay, if the answer is yes, I will binge on this, then it can't be in your house and it's not on your approved list. So that's just like full stop. The second question is it a negative or a neutral or a positive? Now, positive happen less often, but there are some, like carnivore crisps. Have you tried those? They're amazing. They're basically, I don't know what they do. I don't know what they do to this meat, but they like slice meat like ribeye or brisket, very, very thin, and then they dry it. But it doesn't come out like jerky. It comes out like crispy. My boyfriend actually said that it was as close as you could get to a potato chip made of meat. That was what he said. So that's, what they are. So these things I think of as a net positive, right? They have that sort of hedonic pleasure, product, fun thing going. And at the same time, nutritionally, they're positive. They give you things that you need. Then there are things like my little 2 cookies, right? Those are what I would call as more of a neutral. Like in excessive quantities, maybe they'd be a net negative, but in small amounts, they're neutral. And for mood, maybe they're positive. But then there are other brands of cookies or products or Pop-Tarts or whatever, fill in the keto blank, where if you look at the ingredients, they're pretty crummy. They have endocrine disruptors. They have things that cause people a lot of gut distress, just things where I'm like, no bueno, no bueno. So don't eat those things, right? So things that are on my no list. Now your no list may be different than my no list. But you need a no list. If you don't have a no list, get a no list. Make your own. Set your boundaries. And if there are things on your no list, or even things on your I don't know list, then that would probably be in the negative category and should just be avoided altogether, or at least avoided 363 days of the year, right? So that's just my thoughts this week about dirty keto. And I didn't even really define dirty keto, but in my opinion, dirty keto simply means a ketogenic diet where you set your boundaries to include being okay with eating a lot of things that there is evidence that these things are not good for you. I know that's a very broad definition, but some people say bacon's dirty keto, and I'm like, well, that's just ridiculous. But we all have boundaries, and so I think dirty keto gets to that point where maybe there's a part of us that knows that this ingredient should probably maybe be on our no list, but we're eating it anyway. I mean, that's kind of, if I had to come up with a sort of quick explanation of what dirty keto is, it's either you or people close to you or really the rest of the world said, that's not something we should probably be eating on keto, right? And you're like, I'm going to eat it anyway. I'm dirty keto. That's kind of what happens. So I just encourage you to set your boundaries and understand why you set them where, and know you can always change them later. You can always make another decision about where those boundaries are. But one of the things I would tell you is pay attention to people. You don't have to pay attention to me. Well, if you're still listening, you're paying attention to me. But pay attention to people you respect in the arena of keto, and pay attention to what they say about foods that are probably a good or bad idea and why. The why is the most important part, because we don't all agree. Like, I set my boundary to include 2 good yogurt. Somebody else sets their boundary that excludes it because there's an ingredient that's of concern. If you're just looking at the macros and not at the ingredients, you're only getting halfway to where you need to go. So I encourage you to know what you include and to know why you include it, and to know what you exclude and to know why you exclude it. And then there are some in that gray area in the middle that you might be like, these are a little iffy, but I think it's okay if I include them very occasionally, right? And that's fine too. This is your keto. This is your life. This is what you arrange to work for you. But I would really encourage you to make sure that your main focus is on eating high quality, nutrient dense foods that give you all of the nutrients you need to be a healthy and happy, satisfied, thriving human being. And then figure out if you have a little wiggle room for the things that are purely pleasure-based. But the good news on keto is that base diet of nutrient-dense, good-for-you foods are delicious. They are delicious. I mean, quite honestly, there's nothing more hedonistic, in my opinion, than cutting into and eating a nice, rare ribeye steak with that nice fat on it. It's so good when it's a little, you got the outside with a nice sear on it. I mean, it is like a religious experience. And honestly, a lot of these keto products, they're kind of like a fun first date, right? You're like, oh, that was fun. And it's got colors and they all dressed up. But there's like no substance there. You don't feel nourished. And so I just want you to remind yourself, because it's how we're wired evolutionarily to want the like shiny red ball, the new thing, the thing in the pretty package. Like, it's not your fault. We're just wired that way. We want those things. But you remind yourself, like, how do I feel? How am I functioning? Are these things like shutting out room for true nourishment that I need in my life? And so I trust you to use your judgment here and do the thing that is right for you. You get to define your boundaries. But a little of my thoughts about how easy it is to go down the product path and end up feeling a little bit less than perfect. All right, guys. Hope you're well. Have a great week. I will talk to you soon.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Keto Life Support. Want more information? Want show notes? Want to suggest a topic? Just head over to ketolifesupport.com. That's where all that kind of thing can go on. By the way, I have a request. If you could go to your podcast host and hit subscribe, we would really, really appreciate it. And what would be even more awesome is if you could write a review. And what would be even more awesome than that is if you could write like a really flattering review. Just asking, you do you. All right. So thanks so much for joining us. I'm thrilled that you're part of the Keto fam. Talk to you soon.